What if the man who held the United States together in its darkest hour and redefined the nation wasn't just a strategic genius or moral crusader, but a Renaissance philosopher quietly guided by Stoicism? In the crucible of civil war, Abraham Lincoln didn't just read the Stoics, he lived them, turning ancient wisdom into leadership that saved a country. Today, we explore how Stoic virtues shaped Lincoln's presidency through civil war, personal loss, and national transformation. We'll reveal how his emotional resilience, moral clarity, and disciplined mind came from a philosophical practice stretching back centuries. Beyond history, you'll discover mental tools to navigate your own chaos, whether it's crisis, stress, loss, or division, and turn challenges into character. How do you govern a nation unraveling at both ends when every choice feels like a gamble? In March 1861, Lincoln was sworn in with 7 southern states already seceded, militias forming, and treason on the rise. Within days, he faced an impossible dilemma: reinforce federal authority and risk igniting war, or let the nation come apart at the seams. He channeled apatheia, the Stoic ideal of emotional control, not suppression. Stoics taught that suffering arises not from events, but from how we judge them. Epictetus wrote, "It isn't what happens to you, but how you react to it, that matters." Lincoln internalized this. Though he deeply felt the stakes, he refused to become overwhelmed. He responded to threats, insults, and panic with measured calm, methods he considered essential to making sound decisions. That calm under pressure allowed him to mobilize troops, shape public opinion through speeches, and stand firm while tensions escalated. What sustains you when every order sends men to their death? Lincoln presided over the deadliest conflict in U.S. history. More Americans perished in 4 years than in all other wars combined. Yet he didn't harden into cynicism or militarism. He practiced virtue ethics, specifically Stoic arete, excellence, and dikaiosune, justice. Heracles' metaphor of concentric circles, expanding from self to global humanity, guided him to see suffering soldiers on both sides as part of one greater moral community. He visited hospitals, comforted wounded men, and personally wrote condolence letters to grieving families. Lincoln said, "I am in earnest. I will not equivocate. I will not excuse. I will not retreat a single inch." Stoic justice meant using power responsibly, to resolve conflict, not fuel hatred. His decision-making showed that real strength integrates empathy with duty, not detachment from it. How do you build trust with advisors who once called you incompetent? Lincoln's genius lay in recruiting rivals into his cabinet, men like William Seward, Salmon Chase, and Edwin Stanton, whose previous criticism of him could have been a liability. This mirrored the Stoic concept of oikeiosis, or rational expansion of one's inner circle. Marcus Aurelius admonished himself to love even those you find difficult. Lincoln invited genius over ego, creating a cabinet of diverse viewpoints united around a shared mission. He held regular cabinet meetings, listened, debated with empathy, and made deliberate decisions. His tolerance for disagreement prevented echo chambers and encouraged strength through unity. This wasn't a political tactic. It was a Stoic practice of turning perceived threats into assets by transcending personal bias. What lets you move forward when grief is constant? Lincoln's life was marked by profound loss, from his mother's death in 1818 to his son Willie's death in 1862. Each loss risked shattering him. He practiced memento mori, a Stoic meditation on mortality, Seneca taught that reflecting on death cultivates perspective and urgency. Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Though openly grief-stricken, Lincoln didn't retreat. Instead, he used grief as a bridge, deepening empathy, confirming his purpose, and uniting the nation in mourning. When he called for a day of prayer and fasting after the Battle of Antietam, it wasn't just religious, it was a Stoic ritual to realign the national soul with a moral compass amidst bloodshed. Why offer mercy when you've won the hardest war in history? On April 11, 1865, Lincoln called for a benevolent reconstruction, with malice toward none, with charity for all. He acted on Stoic fundamentals, that moral choices, not facts, are what define us. Epictetus insisted that everything outside our moral choice, wealth, status, even rebellion, is indifferent. Lincoln chose compassion, believing that healing shattered bonds was more virtuous and enduring than retribution. He extended pardon to Confederate soldiers and refused calls for radical vengeance, a move that required greater courage than wielding the Union Army. He understood that unity must be chosen, not forced, a core Stoic insight into freedom and responsibility. How do you lead when threats are not just political, but physical? Lincoln knew his presidency painted a target on his back. He increased security, but refused to hide. He moved among crowds, held public events, and visited troops, embodying Stoic prohairesis, or moral agency. Marcus Aurelius wrote that when danger comes, we should say, "I am doing what I ought to do." Lincoln internalized this. Courage is not absence of fear, but action despite it. His appearance at Ford's Theater on April 14, 1865, reflected his steadfast commitment to duty above self-preservation, a final testament to his Stoic discipline. How did Lincoln's words echo across centuries and continue to unify? Lincoln's speeches are celebrated not for length, but for depth and resonance. He wielded logos, the Stoic ideal of rational moral expression. Stoics valued clear, purpose-driven speech that connects with universal truth. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to let your words be brief, brought forth in kindness. Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, just 272 words, reframed national purpose. He invoked founding ideals, conceived in liberty, and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal, transforming a battlefield into a moral amphitheater. Likewise, his second inaugural was not victory rhetoric, but moral vision, malice toward none, charity for all. Through disciplined expression, he channeled Stoic harmonization, speaking not to inflame, but to unite, not to boast, but to kindle shared values. How did Lincoln handle isolation under immense responsibility? The presidency can be a lonely office. Heavy decisions require mental seclusion. Stoics spoke of the inner citadel, a sanctuary of reason inside the chaos of the world. Seneca advised writing private reflections to purge emotional turbulence. Marcus Aurelius wrote daily self-examinations. Like the ancient Stoics, Lincoln maintained solitude, not out of detachment, but for clarity. He would slip away from cabinet meetings to reflect in private. In the early days of the war, he even penned thoughts alone in a tent. This composed center ground allowed him to review strategy, reframe challenges, and act with intention. What fueled Lincoln's disciplined leadership and work ethic? Lincoln famously organized his day in frequent structured blocks, an echo of Stoic time use. Seneca's essay on the shortness of life warns, "We are always complaining that our days are few and acting as though there were a year for us." Lincoln resisted indulgence. He slept little, declined luxuries, and focused relentlessly on the work. In his day, he moved between military briefings, drafting speeches, and educating himself with books. By treating every moment as precious and purposeful, he mirrored the Stoics' reverence for time, converting it into societal progress rather than personal leisure. How did Lincoln combat self-doubt amid repeated setbacks? Lincoln endured defeat, like the humiliation of his first presidential bid in 1858, and battlefield setbacks like Fredericksburg in December 1862. Yet Stoicism teaches internal resilience through disciplined self-talk. Epictetus advocated framing hardships as opportunities. Difficulty shows what men are. Lincoln internalized that pain was a test, not the end. He wrote in solitude, later publishing meditative writings like Meditations Inspired by Death. These journals were his Stoic dialogue, using reason to calm fear and reinforce purpose. How did Lincoln see his mission beyond the war and beyond his lifetime? Lincoln fought not just to reunite states, but to redefine liberty. The Emancipation Proclamation wasn't just war policy. It was a moral manifesto. He embodied Stoic cosmopolitanism, the belief in universal moral community. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "We were born to unite with our brethren." Lincoln's vision anticipated a nation defined not by geography, but by freedom and equality. His vision laid foundations for future civil rights movements. In Stoic terms, he acted from sympatheia, the idea that humanity is interwoven. His purpose lives on because he chose long-term moral architecture over short-term politics. Abraham Lincoln was not merely a wartime leader, he was a Stoic exemplar. He faced collapse with calm, apatheia, advanced justice with empathy, arete, sought unity over revenge, dikaiosne, spoke with purpose, logos, and acted from principle in spite of fear, prohairesis. His story shows us philosophy isn't idle thought, it's action lived under pressure. So, next time life tests you, consider, what would a Stoic like Abraham Lincoln do? Act from reason, speak with moral clarity, lead with conscience. Because real strength doesn't come from avoiding adversity. It's forged in response to it. And always remember, the obstacle isn't in your way. The obstacle is the way.